The airport was louder than usual. Crowds filled every corner, people wearing jerseys, waving flags, chanting songs. The World Cup fever had taken over. But in the middle of all that excitement, stood a man who didn't quite fit in. Daniel. A single dad. Simple clothes. Worn shoes. A tired face, but determined eyes. Beside him, holding his hand tightly, was his 8-year-old son, Leo. "Dad," Leo asked softly, looking around in awe, "are we really going to see the World Cup?" Daniel smiled, even though life hadn't given him many reasons to. "Yeah, champ. We are." They slowly made their way to the check-in counter. People brushed past them. Some glanced, some stared. Not everyone believed they belonged there. When they reached the counter, a flight attendant looked up, perfectly dressed, confident, and clearly busy. Her eyes paused on Daniel, then on Leo, then on their clothes. And something changed. "Next," she said, in a flat tone. Daniel stepped forward and handed over the tickets. "Good morning, ma'am." She didn't respond. Just took the tickets and scanned them. Then suddenly, her expression froze. She looked again. Then again. Her eyebrows furrowed. "Where did you get these?" she asked sharply. Daniel blinked, confused. "I bought them." She let out a small, sarcastic laugh. "These are business class tickets." "I know," Daniel replied calmly. Now people in line were starting to notice. The attendant leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Sir, I think you're mistaken. This section is for premium passengers." Daniel stayed polite. "I understand. That's why I'm here." Leo held his dad's hand tighter. The attendant's voice grew colder. "Look. I don't want to embarrass you. But maybe you should step aside and check economy class." A few passengers nearby whispered. Some smirked. Others just watched. Daniel's face tightened slightly, but he didn't argue. "I'm not mistaken," he said quietly. The attendant sighed loudly, clearly irritated now. "Sir, we have standards here. You can't just walk up looking like this and expect." She stopped mid-sentence. Leo had stepped forward. "My dad promised me," he said, his small voice shaking but brave, "we're going to the World Cup." Silence. For a second, everything around them paused. The attendant looked at the child, then back at Daniel. But instead of softening, her expression hardened even more. "I'm going to ask you to leave," she said firmly. "Before this becomes a scene." Daniel took a deep breath. This wasn't new to him. Judgment. Assumptions. Disrespect. But today, it wasn't just about him. It was about his son. Slowly, Daniel reached into his old backpack. He pulled out something carefully. A folded envelope. Worn, but important. He looked at the attendant and said, "Before we go, please read this." She hesitated. Annoyed. Impatient. But curious. She snatched the envelope and opened it. Her eyes moved across the page. And within seconds, her expression began to change. Confusion. Then surprise. Then something else. Something she wasn't expecting. Because that letter was about to change everything. The flight attendant's eyes moved quickly across the letter. At first, she looked confused. Then her face slowly lost color. Her lips parted slightly. "This can't be," she whispered. Daniel stood quietly, holding Leo's hand. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. The attendant read the letter again, this time more carefully. And now, everyone around could see it. Something was very wrong. Or rather, something was very unexpected. Her voice shook as she read aloud a line without realizing. Mr. Daniel Carter is recognized as a key contributor in the emergency reconstruction of the World Cup Stadium. A murmur spread through the crowd. People leaned in. Phones slowly came out. The letter continued. Along with his son Leo, he is invited as a special guest of honor. The attendant froze. Her hand trembled. She looked up at Daniel, the same man she had just told to leave. You're that Daniel, she stammered. Daniel gave a small nod. I just did my job. But it wasn't just a job. Months ago, after a devastating accident at the stadium construction site. When others ran away, Daniel stayed. He worked day and night. Helped rescue trapped workers. Helped rebuild what was broken. Saved lives. And now, he was standing here, being judged for his clothes. The silence around them grew heavy. One man in line whispered, "That guy's a hero." Another said. And she told him to leave. The attendant stepped back, completely shaken. I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't know. Daniel gently took the letter back. His voice was calm. You didn't ask. Just then, a senior airport manager rushed toward them, slightly out of breath. Mr. Carter. We've been looking for you everywhere. He turned sharply to the attendant. Do you realize who this is? She couldn't even respond. He is one of the people who made this World Cup possible, the manager said firmly. The crowd fell silent again. This time, out of respect. The manager immediately changed his tone, smiling warmly. Sir, please, allow us to escort you and your son personally. He gestured toward the VIP lane. The same people who had doubted them just minutes ago. Now stepped aside. No whispers. No smirks. Only silence. The attendant stood frozen. Ashamed. Watching as Daniel and Leo walked past her. Leo looked up at his dad. Dad, why didn't you tell them? Daniel smiled softly. Because, son, people should treat others kindly, even when they don't know who they are. As they walked toward the gate, hand in hand. The world around them felt different. Not because Daniel had changed. But because the truth had finally been seen. And behind them. The consequences were just beginning. The walk to the gate felt different now. Not because Daniel had changed. But because everyone else had. People who once whispered were now silent. Some even nodded with respect as he passed. Leo noticed it too. Dad, they're all looking at you. Daniel smiled faintly. Let them, champ. At the boarding gate, things moved quickly. Staff members greeted them warmly. Welcome, Mr. Carter. It's an honor to have you. The same airport that had just doubted him was now rolling out respect at every step. Behind them, though, the situation was far from over. The flight attendant stood near the counter, pale and shaken. The airport manager returned, this time, serious. Step into my office, he said firmly. She didn't argue. She knew. Inside, her voice cracked. I made a mistake. The manager shook his head. No. You made an assumption. Silence. Airports aren't just about tickets and seats, he continued. They're about people. Respect isn't optional. She looked down, unable to respond. A few minutes later. The decision was made. She was removed from duty, effective immediately. Not just for what she said. But for how she made someone feel. Back at the gate, Daniel and Leo were preparing to board. Leo looked excited again, his earlier fear gone. Dad, this is the best day ever. Daniel chuckled. It's just getting started. As they stepped onto the plane, something unexpected happened. The pilot himself came out of the cockpit. Mr. Carter, he said with a smile. I just wanted to say, thank you. Daniel looked surprised. For what? For what you did. People like you don't just build stadiums, you build hope. For the first time that day, Daniel didn't have a response. Just a quiet nod. They took their seats. Big, comfortable. A world away from everything they had been through. Leo pressed his face to the window. Dad, we're really going. Daniel looked at him, eyes soft. Yeah, champ. We are. As the plane began to move, Daniel leaned back and closed his eyes for a moment. Not out of tiredness, but peace. Because today wasn't just about a flight. Or even the World Cup. It was about something bigger. Respect. Dignity. And a simple truth he had lived his whole life. You don't need to wear success to deserve it.